Hi there, neXtgen members. Here in Western Australia, been here for a couple of days working on a project we call Grazing Bites, which is a collaboration between Murdoch University, neXtgen Agri, DPIRB, which is a Department of Ag in Western Australia, and Muresk, which is an institute over here, a training institute. So big collaboration. It's funded by Australian Wool Innovation to advance the smart tag work they've been doing. Really, I guess, in-depth bit of work that we're doing at the moment. The team from Murdoch are doing the lion's share of that work. I'm over here to give them a hand for a little bit. So you're going to hear from Cara Allan in a minute, who's been leading the on-ground work here. A young person in the industry. Fantastic to see her following her passion, and Andrew Thompson, who leads the group here and has been leading this work, and a great collaborator of neXtgen Agri, as you've heard before. So the intention here is to get real-time feed intake in the paddock, and so if we can do that from a sensor-based approach, that would really, I guess, change the game in terms of how we manage pastures. We know that that's going to have a big impact on farm profitability and pasture utilisation. So really interesting to see how we go. We're using the smart tags from AWI, and really and hoping that through rumination time, through grazing time, and through some other metrics, and using machine learning where we can actually nut that out, and so the smart tag from AWI will be able to feed back where the sheep are, what they're eating, what they're doing, and how much they've eaten that day. Cara, so what's your role in this project?
I'm the on-the-ground team lead, so I'm just here making sure all of the things that need to be done get done.
Cool. And so for the last couple of weeks you've been out here working on these wethers we've got here. What are we doing?
Yeah, so we're undertaking the pilot for the Grazing Bite study. So we're figuring out what methods to use for future studies. There'll be a number of different studies done across varying types of environments, and so we've got green pastures, stubbles, using different animals. So they'll be at different locations around Australia. So we're determining what are the best methods to achieve the outcomes that we're looking for.
Cool. And so those outcomes are feed intake across a range of different, real-time feed intake? Yeah,
so ultimately we're hoping, or we're aiming to use sensors on sheep to determine feed intake in real time. So at the moment we're using multiple different sensors. So we're using actigraphs, activity sensors, the new AWI smart tags, as well as GPS trackers on the sheep. But hopefully, ultimately, they'll all be combined into one AWI smart tag that will be able to determine feed intake in real time.
Cool. And so it's a fantastic and exciting project, but there's some pretty grueling stuff that you've been doing over the last few days, and I've been here to witness a couple of those. But so just for the people out there, what have you actually been doing?
Yeah, so because this is a pilot, we're using multiple different methods. So we're using multiple different sensors, we're using multiple different intake groups, so high and low intake. So we're modifying the sheep's access to feed. So we've got high and low foos, and we're also using multiple different, we're calling them tracers, so indigestible fecal markers, so titanium dioxide, polyethylene glycol, and we were looking at a C4 plant, so roads, and so we're trying to determine which of those is going to be the best method for the future study. So ours is quite broad, and we're hoping to narrow it down. So that means there's a lot of extra work here. So day to day, our day is very busy. We start around 6:30 in the morning. So we're here, have the sheep in the yards at 7. At 7, we're collecting feces from the sheep. So they've all got fecal collection bags on. So we do a total collection and then subsample. We also dose them with the fecal markers, So that means that every sheep is either getting a drench or a bolus application of the fecal markers. We were hoping to include Rhodes pellet in that, so the sheep would be penned and just consume the C4 plant, which can be differentiated from the C3 crop that they're consuming. However, the sheep weren't really interested in eating it, so that one was ruled out fairly early. Yeah, so at the moment they're getting a drench or a bolus capsule of titanium dioxide, and that happens in the morning. Then after that we have to go back, process all of the feces, then we come back at 3 o'clock, take pasture samples, so we're doing nutritional grabs, as well as food across all of the different levels of intake. Then we do another collection of feces in the afternoon, and then go back and process that. So it's really a 12 or 13 hour a day sort of process from start to finish.
Dealing with shit.
Dealing with a lot of poo.
Excellent. So back in the day when I was at Murdoch, you were a student there, and then you went out of livestock for a while into fertiliser with CSPP.
Yeah.
What drew you back to the sheep industry?
So I did animal science and honours in sheep, so I was looking at sort of reproductive traits in sheep, and really that sort of sparked my passion for sheep, and I've always really loved them, which is a little bit weird, but I've got a couple of sheep on my 15 acres at home, and coming out of the degree, going into cropping wasn't really a choice, it was a necessity really. There's not a huge amount of jobs available in animal production, so I went out and did that for a while, and although it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, it was really great because I learnt a heap about soil science and crops, and then ultimately a position came up at Murdoch where I got to work with sheep again, so I just really jumped at the chance.
Perfect. Excellent. So who are the partners in this project?
So the Grazing Bites project is funded by AWI. So we're using the AWI prototype smart tag, which you can see on the sheep behind us in their ear. So they're not commercially available as yet, and this project's helping to refine a couple of the measurements that those tags will ultimately be able to assess in real time. So through AWI, it's also a collaborative project between neXtgen Agri in New Zealand. We're here at Muresk, so we've had a lot of involvement from the staff at Muresk, which have been fantastic. Murdoch, so we're on the ground doing most of the day-to-day work, as well as Claire, who's been amazing, from DPERD.
So it's quite a big undertaking to do any research, particularly when you get down to the detail that you guys are. I assume there's been a fair heap of people that have been running that?
Yeah, across the almost 6 to 8 weeks that this project's been running from woe to go, with 4 weeks of intensive on farm at Muresk. There's been around 20 people involved across all of the collaborative partners, so that's neXtgen Agri, DPERD, Muresk, AWI, both here on the ground and remotely.
And like a massive swag from Murdoch as well.
Oh, and yeah, a massive swag from Murdoch, including myself.
Yeah, so I don't think you need to be ashamed of your passion for sheep, because everyone that will be watching this are equally crazy about sheep. That's what brings us all together, really. But fantastic, thanks for your time, and thanks from the industry's behalf for doing this fantastic work.
No problem.
Cheers. So the team behind me are doing the work. They're collecting faecal samples, and it's the final one for this collection. 5 days they've been collecting faecal samples morning and night, and a whole heap of things that Cara has already talked about. But a heap of work going out on behalf of producers to hopefully really take the next step in sheep production, which is to understand what's going on in the paddock with a lot more detail. Thanks very much for your time. I hope this has been informative, and as usual, we'd love to hear your feedback. We're trying harder and harder to bring good information to members and clients, and things are growing all the time. We're getting new people on. It's a really exciting time to be in the sheep industry, and great to be on the journey with you. Thanks very much.